love seeing White Sox fans be excited too. This season's been fun. It's been, a rough handful of years for the White Sox, but I think seeing people just rally behind a team and behind a culture that is positive is always a great thing.
Welcome into another great week, another great conversation here on Cousins Conversations. And I have Elijah Evans with me. Perfect time to have Elijah on because we're talking post-trade deadline for the MLB and everything with the postseason coming up here the last couple months of the season going on. He is the head of operations for Just Baseball, a couple different podcasts under that as well, with FutureSox, where they talk about the prospects and everything White Sox, and then the Call Up podcast as well. So a lot of different prospect talk, Elijah. I want to start there. Just where did your fascination with prospects and talking about minor leagues and everything come for you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nick. I appreciate you welcoming me in. No, it was a pretty natural progression for me, not something I necessarily thought I would be into. I was a baseball nerd growing up. I loved the game. I loved tracking stats and numbers, and that was kind of just always my niche, but really didn't get into anything on the minor league side till I was in college, and I started doing a little bit of stuff for White Sox writing in general. Started getting out to spring training, just doing some reporting things, and then from there I started getting into FutureSox, which was really my true introduction to prospects. Is when I started recording and doing shows with them in 2023. And for me, that was just kind of the way to talk about the White Sox. I grew up a White Sox fan. I still consider myself a White Sox fan, even working in the industry. It's a different world, of course. But, I got into White Sox prospects, got super deep into the farm system. I started doing draft interviews and stuff like that. And then when you start to get to know these guys and really learn about a farm system and prospects, it opens your eyes to just how cool the minor league side of baseball is and how unique it is. There's really no other sport with anything like that. So that was something that I got into at that point. And then from there, it turned into just all minor league prospects. I started doing stuff with the Call Up. I was working for Just Baseball early on when I was in school and started doing social media stuff for the Call Up pages. So that was just like my forced natural way to start to learn about prospects all over the league. And then last year started recording, becoming a co-host of the show. So we do minor league stuff of all different types on the Call Up, and then still do my White Sox stuff as well. So really just a natural, let's get into baseball more and find a way to create a lane in the industry, and just turned into a lot of different interests for me, and particularly within the development prospect side of things.
Yeah, it's not really a lane that a lot of people are talking about, so it's fascinating that you have the expertise that you do. What have you found over time that you've just built up this knowledge that you have in this specific area that you have?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it takes just a lot of time and energy spent on looking at numbers, looking at video, watching highlights, things like that. I mean, I watch minor league games regularly, which I don't think many people do in general, and then just keeping up with as many things I can, talking to people, getting to know people. I worked for an agency when I was in school for a little while, so that kind of gave me a whole other perspective on some of the way that people evaluate and look at young players and talent. So it really just takes a wealth of time and energy, in addition to just meeting the right people, getting to know scouts and getting to know agency people and all that stuff. It's one of those things where it's a little bit of just natural progression and putting time towards it as time goes on, and you start to pick up more things along the way.
You're from Chicago. This podcast taking place in my studios here in Chicago as well. How did you become a White Sox fan?
Yeah, I was born into it. Honestly, I had a lot of White Sox fans in my world, who was people, just my family, generations of people from Hyde Park was where my dad's side of the family's from for many generations. So born into the White Sox lineage and never turned back from there.
Love it, love it. That's me too. I grew up even on the north side where all the Cubs fans are. They won the World Series when I was a kid, and stuck it out here through the good times and the bad. And we're in good times now, though. Elijah, I'm curious though, how did other teams miss on Murakami, or did the White Sox just get lucky with how good that he's been this year, being an All Star?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I can't, I would be lying if I said I was super keen on Murakami coming into the offseason and the season. I honestly wasn't. I was with a lot of people in the industry that were a little skeptical, and I still think there are some things that he'll still need to, be worked out as he refines himself at the big league level. But ultimately, I think that the White Sox, a lot of teams are scared off of the money. And I think from Murakami's standpoint, and from the interesting angle, I don't think I talked about a ton with it, is if you're going to have to settle for a lower value deal, I think Murakami's people could have gotten a 4 or 5 year deal at a similar value. So it might have seemed like a better deal, but I think for him ultimately taking a shot at only a 2 year deal, if you were already going to be lower money wise than you wanted, is better than a similar value deal at 4 or 5 years, because ultimately if he does well, he gets to prove himself, which he already has to a degree, right? And now he goes to cash in on a long term deal after this. I think it was a combination of luck and also the White Sox just being willing to take a chance on someone that they believed they could get the most out of. I think the White Sox are more confident in their hitting development and their coaching and their system there than they have been in a long time. I think particularly this last 2 years, and with Ryan Fuller being the director of hitting, and then Derek Showman coming in this year, I think like there's a level of confidence with the offense and the hitting development than there wasn't in the past. So I think that was part of why the White Sox were willing to just say let's take a shot on this guy.
How much credit do you give to General Manager Chris Getz right now, especially with the trades and this team now being buyers at the deadline when we're coming into the year? We're saying maybe this team, they're good. You can see it with these young players that came up towards the end of last season, but now it's almost like an accelerated process, like we're here now versus like 1 or 2 years from now.
Yeah, you got to give a little credit to the front office. I think they've done a lot of the right things in the past couple of years to put this team in position to be competitive going forward and to be a team that's built for the next handful of years, right? I think you look at a guy that just is, I think it's Getz, and I think it's also just a really strong foundation around him. There's a lot of smart people in the assistant GMs, Josh Barfield, and the director of hitting, Ryan Fuller, like I mentioned, Mike Shirley on the drafting side, right? Like there's a collective effort to build a sustainably quality team and a team that's going to compete for a lot of many years to come, hopefully, right? That is the goal. They've made that the goal from the start, right? So I think you look at the organization as just doing a lot of things well and getting themselves in a position where they feel ready to make shit happen, honestly, make stuff happen, and be this blended aggressiveness of let's develop our system, let's make sure we're getting a proper system in place to develop talent, but also at the same time, let's get a little aggressive and make moves we need to make, and go get guys we need to get for this roster, and lean into the youth. And that's what you saw starting last year, but especially this year, it's like, let's be a young team that has a high level of energy, and let's still make sure that we're creating a path to winning at the same time. And it's quicker than I expected. I didn't expect this team to be in the heat of a division race in 2026. I thought it would be more 27 and beyond, but not going to complain about them being a year early, that's for sure.
A lot of youth playing well out there. We've seen Colson Montgomery. We've seen Chase Mydroth, Sam Antonacci come up this year and play out of his position and left, doing a great job there. But at the deadline, they bring in some veterans. Luis Castillo, who's pitched in the postseason. Joey Bart, who's a veteran catcher as well. Brenton Doyle. What did you think about the trade deadline moves and kind of adding some depth pieces, some veteran pieces, even though some of their numbers, maybe offensively and ERA wise, are down from previous years?
Yeah, I think this was an interesting deadline. It was definitely a what I would call a kind of a safe deadline, right? I don't think I think that's what I expected. I think this is what most people expected, right? Like you didn't see them push the chips in on a Reed Detmers or on a whoever else was, Jose Soriano. Detmers doesn't even get moved ultimately, right? Like it was a getting guys that are controllable, right? They didn't trade for a single rental. It was for controllable assets, and that was probably the more logical thing for a team that isn't necessarily focused purely on this year. So you don't go with the rental route. You go with the four controllable guys. They plugged the holes they needed to plug. I think there is a reason to believe there should have been another pitcher or two in the mix, especially on the starting side. I think Castillo you're hoping he bounces back, and we'll see how his making start later tonight as we're recording here on Thursday. Like, I hope that there's more in the tank there. I can't say I'm exactly excited about Luis Castillo being the one starter added, right? I think that is like, you're banking on a guy who's been a career, had a very successful career, but is definitely regressed the last 2 seasons. And I know he's been in a weird situation in Seattle, so maybe that's part of it. Now he's going to be in your rotation, and you feel better about that. But I do think there's some risk there that comes with him. The contract is bawdy for sure. Get off the Sir Anthony Dominguez money, that's part of it. But like, it is a risky get for that being the one starter that comes in. I think all the other moves made a lot of sense. I think Brazaban is a guy that 3.5 years of control of a reliever that has been really, really steady the past couple of years, and he's versatile. He can be in many different roles out of the bullpen. That one made a lot of sense to me. The Joey Bart move, like, it just seems like there really wasn't any cheap catchers out there, right? Like, I wouldn't have wanted the White Sox to do the Adley Rutschman deal. Would have cost a fortune. And then, there wasn't really like a lot of guys. Liam Hicks going over from the Marlins to the Rays. Like, there just wasn't a lot of catchers. Like, Tyler Stevens is a guy that I thought was 100% getting moved, and he doesn't even get moved ultimately. So, like, I think the White Sox just kind of had to settle for whatever catcher they were able to get at a decent price. And Bart is, not the most exciting, but an upgrade. And then, the Brenton Doyle one was the one that kind of caught me off guard. I think that one was pretty surprising. We've talked a lot about Mason Adams on FutureSox before. Big fan of his. I think he's great makeup and just someone who I think can be a big league starter, even if it is more of a back end starter. So that one hurt a little bit, but I think that the organization views Doyle with 3.5 years of control as someone that, a high level defensive center field. They think they can get more out of the bat. It's another testament to really their belief in their hitting development from the standpoint of I just think that they believe they can get more from Brenton Doyle as time goes on than what we saw this year and last year.
What prospects from these deals do the White Sox fans look and say, maybe we'll miss this guy?
Yeah, Adams is the big one for me. I mentioned it earlier. I think Mason Adams is a big one. I think he's just going to be a big league arm. I don't know if it's the highest level big league arm, but I think he's going to be a big league arm. Gabe Davis as well. In the Brazaban deal, going over to the Mets. Davis was a fifth rounder last year. We saw that the stuff really looked very impressive this season, early in the year. I don't know if he's ever going to throw enough strikes. He probably is more of a reliever long term, but 6'9" right hander with like ridiculous stuff that jumps at you. Like there's definitely some upside there. I could see him turning into a real piece for the Mets. So those are the two guys that jump out at me out of the gate there. Obviously, other guys moved, but I don't think there's anybody else you're too worried about beyond those two. And then Carlos Vielma is an interesting one too. That was the second piece that went over to Colorado in that Brenton Doyle deal. He's a 16-year-old in the Dominican Summer League, so those stats down there are pretty much mean nothing. But at the same time, he's been incredible at 16 years old. So you're always a guy that you never know. There's one of those guys that it brings me Yoiker Fajardo flashbacks a little bit, who's now dominating in the Cardinals organization, but a guy in Vielma who he could be something. So it is. That was one I was not happy about, even though I get the process there.
You see some corresponding moves as well after getting Doyle. DFA for Everson Pereira, and DFA for Austin Hayes. We saw this morning of our recording here as well. So your reaction to those moves and kind of going with Doyle here more going forward, because yes, the outfield was pretty packed. And then are they moving Antonacci to his more manageable position on the infield as well?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a result of just the development of what you've seen from Tristan Peters, Sam Antonacci this year. I think that the defensive priority of Doyle is clear. Let's make sure we have another defensive guy who is a stud in the outfield. I think it's just a balancing act, right? Like Antonacci and Peters have both really struggled against left-handed pitching. So I think getting a right-handed hitter in and someone with premium defense was the objective here, right? I think Doyle will start in center field probably against lefties from now on. Peters' breakout has been awesome, but really he hasn't been good all season against left-handers, and he's slowed down overall lately. So I do expect for Doyle to be kind of the starting center fielder against left-handed pitching. And then in addition to that, I think he will be that late game defensive replacement for Antonacci as well. If you have Peters and Doyle both in the outfield and late in the game, you feel pretty good about your defense there. And Brenton Montgomery is good as well in right field. So I think from a defensive standpoint, you have your guy that's your defensive replacement, even in days where he's not starting. So if it's a right-handed pitcher starting that game and you're sticking with the standard outfield of Antonacci, Peters, and Montgomery, Doyle can be the guy that comes in for Antonacci later on. He's still learning how to play the outfield. I think if you want a late game replacement, Doyle is just about as good as you can get for a late game left field defensive replacement.
Of the Antonaccis, the Colson Montgomerys, the Braden Montgomerys, the Chase Mydros, the young players on this team, have any of them surprised you at how good they are, or are you surprised that they've come along this fast out of any of those?
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. I think that there's a lot of. I've been an Antonacci truther since the draft. I've probably been the number one person preaching him on the online for a couple of years now. So that guy is someone I thought was going to be a stud from the second I saw him play in Kannapolis at Single A, and even what he was doing in college. I just think he's such a. It's so people say this all the time, and it's probably overblown at this point. But he's such a ball player, and he just does the thing, and he gets the job done, and it's really impressive to watch him work the way he has, and he's been awesome. So yeah, he's a guy that and they're learning how to play left field in the course of 2 months because the Sox needed someone to. It's been so impressive and fun to watch him play this season. And then on the infield side of things, Colson Montgomery obviously has had his ups and downs, but he's an incredibly talented player. And I know I'm pretty sick of the narratives of some people that are oh, he strikes out too much, he's a bad player or whatever. And there's some things for Colson Montgomery to work on, don't get me wrong, but he has been a plus defensive shortstop while hitting 25 homers in his first full season at the big league level. I'm never going to be mad about that type of production. He's got 50 homers in his first less than 200 MLB games. I just, while playing a good shortstop, I don't really care about there's just this era of baseball, there's guys that are going to whiff a lot and they're still going to be very good baseball players, and that's going to be Colson Montgomery. I'm pretty confident in that aspect of it.
I'm always wondering, what happened last year when he went from AAA down to the facility? Like, what did he find that now we see this power bat that he's found? And we know he was good defensively, and he was kind of switching over from third to short. But what did he find with the bat? Do you think in that
Yeah, I
spot?
mean, he worked directly with Ryan Fuller, director of hitting for that time there in Arizona, and I know it's become like kind of a I think he's kind of over talking about it because it's like this huge story, but at the same time, like I think it was just like let's make sure that you know the type of hitter you're going to be. I think he leaned into more of the three outcome guy, which ultimately like I think there was a lot of effort to be a contact hitter throughout the minor leagues, and at the same time he's a big dude and has a lot of natural power. I think it was like you got to hit some homers, and even if you're selling out a bit for some power, like that probably is the better version of himself as someone who's elevating the ball to the pull side and able to really get into his power more often. So I think leaning into that power approach was a big thing. I know there was some small things he worked on just from the body standpoint, from the mechanical standpoint, just making sure all of his motions were in a good place. So it's cool to see, and I think for him it's just like getting to where he is. Like it's a top prospect for the White Sox for a couple of years, and of course it was a really shaky 2024, and it got people off the wagon a little bit. And then even last year it was a little bit like daunting of just like, oh, like this guy's not performing at the level we expected. Now he's figured it out, and yeah, there's still things for him to get better at, but he's working on it, and he's becoming a much better player as we keep going here.
Who's the next prospect we see come up? Is it a Hagen Smith? I know pitching's maybe overloaded now, but with the postseason coming up, do we maybe see him come up at the end of the year or anybody else?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's probably one of the two with Hagen Smith and Tanner McDougal, the two top pitching prospects down in the minors still. I expect both those guys, honestly, to debut here out of the bullpen. I think that it's going to be really cool to see this bullpen that's already in a pretty good spot, frankly. It's been a pretty effective bullpen of late, especially the way Jordan Hicks has trended up. Now you got Brazaban in the mix. But I do think that, like, those last two bullpen spots right now being Richards and Murphy, like if you turn that into your top two pitching prospects that both throw 100 plus in short spurts out of the bullpen in Hagen Smith and Tanner McDougal, I think we're going to see both those guys at some point, and it's going to be really fun to watch those guys work because they are exceptionally talented and I think still viewed as potentially long term starters, but in a short spurt out of the bullpen, Smith and McDougal could be absolutely dynamic.
Looking forward to that. When you go to spring training and you're at the facility, what's your approach? How are you studying guys? What do you what's your knowledge when you go there, and what's your prep? What are you doing to kind of get the knowledge base going?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I love being out in Arizona. I've been there the past 4 years now. It's super fun. I mean, I get to talk to players obviously when you have access to guys directly in the spring. It's a very chill atmosphere. So obviously very grateful to be able to have access in the media side of things to talk to guys and get to know major league guys, but also really just the minor league clubhouse. Just going to talk to those guys. It's super laid back. It's very much just like I can get to know these guys a little bit on a personal and baseball level, and then sitting on the backfields. That's one of my favorite things to do. The spring training games themselves, official games are kind of whatever to me. I love being on the backfields and just watching the minor league guys work and seeing guys where the stuff jumps out. I'm always tracking pitch stuff, pitch movements, just stuff that looks visually gaudy, of course. And then on the hitting side, watching guys take BP, watching the swing mechanics, the way that the body moves, seeing if there's been any clear noticeable adjustments between the way a guy is swinging from one year to the next year. I love that, and then just really just like the raw tools of some of these young guys being able to check in on the guys from the complex levels, the new international signings, the new draft class guys, and just see the way the ball carries and the way they're able to elevate is always fun. But yeah, really just having good conversations with people around the organization, players, coaches, all the above, and then making sure that I'm taking in as much as I can visually throughout the entire time I'm there.
Who was your most enjoyable conversation this year? That's someone that we don't know about or should know about.
It's a good question. Are you talking more on the player side or more on the development side? Because I love a lot of the dev guys are great too.
Oh, let's go development. Somebody will know in like a couple of years from now.
Yeah, no, I had him on for an interview recently. Sherman Johnson is amazing. He's a minor league hitting coordinator. He's the man. I've really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit in the spring, and then on an interview recently, like he just is super tapped into the way that the hitting side is going, and he's a friend. He has connection to Ryan Fuller. I think they all work in tandem together. But the hitting guys are great. Paul Yanish as well, who's director of player development for the White Sox, is always super helpful and enjoy getting to know them. On the player side, like I think there's a lot of guys to be excited about. I think this recent draft class is super fun. I'm just starting to meet a couple of the new draft guys, but last year draft guys especially. Always enjoy talking to Jaden Fauske. He's got a great head on his shoulders. I think he's a really young, talented guy who's gonna make strides. And then even last year's class, there's a bunch of other guys throughout that draft class that are super exciting. And the whole organization, honestly, dude, there's layers of just people that want to be there and people that want to be working together. There's a lot of positive energy that I don't think there necessarily was a number of years ago within the organization. So it's cool to just be in the atmosphere and feel the positive nature of how everybody's operating now.
Definitely a different vibe. You see that at the games this year too.
Yeah.
A lot more sellouts. The fans into the games. Roch Cholowsky. We saw him make his debut this week in High A in Kannapolis, and also Jim Tomey's son, the draft day move to get him and trade Jacob Gonzalez as well. What'd you think about those two draft picks, and how quickly do you think Roch will come up and play?
Yeah, I think it was a tricky scenario. I think we've been hearing, for when you have the first pick 7 months out and there's a favorite to go 1-1 from the start, it creates a lot of pressure, creates a lot of sideline stories. Like I think that like they of course did their due diligence to make sure they were picking the right guy. At the same time, like Roch was that guy. It became kind of clear after the draft that like he was the guy. It was going to be hard to dethrone him, and Grady Emerson gave it a real run. That's for sure. But like Brock was the guy. That was the guy they were taking. That was the guy that was going to go 1-1 at the end of the day. And I think he's, the right pick. I think it's a marginally safer pick, right? I think that you're taking the guy with a high floor. The defense is excellent. He's able to be someone that is going to rise quickly, right? We see he's in Winston-Salem at the high level already. I think he'll start next year in Double A, and then we'll see from there. But yeah, I mean, I would not be surprised to see him mid to late year next season, and just sometime in 27. I think wouldn't be surprising. If it's 28 though, like White Sox fans shouldn't be panicking. I think it takes guys to develop sometimes, and he's going to be making some swing adjustments this offseason. I know they've already talked about some mechanical things they want to tweak with his hand pump and just the way he kind of sets up his two-strike approach. I know they're kind of playing around with, and like those tweaks don't usually happen until the offseason. So give it this full offseason, go into next year, and obviously he'll still be working through some of that in game next season. So I lean like late 2027 personally.
What have you seen with this trend in baseball now? Because I saw there was a stat, MLB Network, that the first 20 picks from the 2024 MLB draft are already in the majors. So what have you seen in that trend where the development happens faster, or is it just that these guys are just ready to go and they're just that good?
Yeah, I think it's just a talent level raise and a development level raise across baseball. I think that not only are players better than ever, but the training is just better than ever. Guys are throwing. I mean, guys are going through weighted ball training routines in high school that was never a thing before. So guys come into pro ball and they're already training like they're a pro, right? So like a lot of these guys that come in are just there's just such a higher level of like what they're doing off the field before they even get to pro baseball, and then they get to pro baseball and it's like, all right, let's do even more of this, and they just continue to the traject machines, and just the technology and development is better than ever, and players are better than ever, right? Like I just think there's talent is at an all-time high across sports, across the human body. Like I know that's so generic to say, but it's true. Like there's just but the ability to train is just at a different level than it ever has been with technology, with just the way our bodies are growing. So I think players are just more talented than ever, and I think that leads to a situation where there's just so much talent throughout minor league baseball and guys that are flying through the minor leagues because they're just that good.
Yeah, crazy to see. Yeah, there's just so much more athleticism in a lot of these players today. No matter what sport it is, they all play some other sport growing up, and it's crazy to see how fast a lot of these guys are coming up. With your watching prospects and everything, and now you've grown your own brand through a couple different podcasts and just baseball. How did this all kind of develop into what it is today and getting to this point for you?
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's definitely just been kind of one thing at a time for me, and just seeing how it progresses. I knew when got to school, honestly, that it was like I wanted to create a path to work in baseball, and for me it was just like, let's get my foot in the door wherever I can. Started working for Just Baseball in college, and just interning, running social media stuff for them, and then started doing some writing for the website. Just kind of very early on, when the company was just getting off the ground. It was just like, let me get involved, let me do everything I can. So worked for them throughout my 3 years of school, and went into starting from social media intern and making my way into a part-time staffer, and then the head of social media, and then a little bit of everything since there, and then moving into my current role. I worked for an agency in college for a while, doing some player research, some baseball marketing stuff, a little bit of contract arbitration stuff as well. So dabbled with that as well. Did some scouting work for a team after all of that at my last year of school. So really just was like, for me, it was just getting every experience I possibly could and then seeing where it led me. And never expected to be exactly where I am now, but I'm incredibly grateful and privileged to be in a position where I was able to step into the head of operations role with just baseball and running everything from our finances to our staff to our podcast network, our business development, partnerships, stuff like that. So I get to do a little bit of everything, and it's a unique lifestyle. It's a unique energy. I know far from for the sports world is definitely not for the faint of heart in terms of the amount of hours and the time you're putting in. It's not a 9 to 5. It's a lot more than that, and it's a lot more sporadic than that. But I love it, and I'm passionate about it. And at the end of the day, being able to work in baseball at all is a blessing, and it's something that I'm thankful for.
Head of operations role. What goes into that? You mentioned it a little bit there, but just a little bit more into to what that role is, so people watching maybe be interested in something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely changes every day. It's never the same thing. I'm in, running for everything from our company top down in terms of making sure everybody on our staff is a point of contact. Everybody's set up, our invoicing system, our staff managing what's coming in, what's coming out of the company, stuff like that. And then business development. I'm always meeting people, making connections, growing our brand, trying to bring in partnerships. So a lot of our, media world sponsorships is the biggest source of revenue, right? So working with sponsors, working with our staff to bring in anybody we can bring in to bring money in. So ultimately just growing the business is the simple way to put it. And then in addition to doing my podcasts, prospect stuff, all that stuff. So I still dabble with the content, which is always fun to do, but definitely more of my time these days is spent on the business development side of things.
Growing podcasts, growing brands. What have you learned about that side of things? Because people are so consumed to content and the digital space these days. So, what's been your biggest learning lesson through all that?
Yeah, it is. It is not easy. The media space is not the easiest world these days. It's definitely very saturated. A lot of people want to be in the world, and at the end of the day, like your content has to be good first and foremost. That is, you got to have a passionate and dedicated, type of quality of content, and then from there, it's scaling. It's just meeting people. It's making connections, and it's the world of media is about who you know and how you ingrain yourself and how you prove to people that you're worth their time. So it is very challenging. It's not an easy one, and I think people underestimate what it takes fully to get into this space. And I've had many hard bumps along the way, some good moments along the way, but definitely some challenges as it goes. And I think that's just how it is sometimes. And you just roll with the punches and you try to do everything you can to make sure just do the best you can to make stuff happen and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, growth is not linear
Yeah.
in any way possible, and there's a lot of challenges, like you said. Like this channel, I'm trying to grow as well. This podcast, I'm trying to grow. You've grown it. You've grown yours into what they are. So what's gotten you through those challenges and those hard times for you?
Yeah, I think it's just remaining confident in yourself and knowing that you're just being the best version of you every day. I think that's really just how I try to how look at the world and take your balance, make sure you have your moments to be away from this stuff. But yeah, really the media space is all about just believing in yourself, but also just giving yourself grace along the way. You can't put too much pressure on every single day, every single moment, right? You gotta have some balance throughout the day. So I think for me, my biggest hope is just to stay grounded and just keep working at it every day, do the best you can, and then you see what happens. And not everything can be in your control at the end of the day. You can control only a certain amount of stuff. You got to control what you control, and you hope the rest works out.
The FutureSox podcast, you said that was kind of like your baby, what you started doing. And great insight there. I listened to the last episode last night. You guys talked about the trade deadline, and you're both very knowledgeable on there. And your co-host Dylan not cease. That's funny. I like that. That's a good Twitter handle for him. So just starting with that and getting into that digital space. What did you feel at first going into that, and then kind of seeing the growth over time there? Kind of starting with that, how much did that kind of get things rolling for you?
Yeah, I mean the FutureSox has been around for many years, and it was something that I had just gotten when I started doing White Sox stuff for just baseball. I'd gotten asked to come host a show for them, and I was super interested in the idea of just getting into podcasting and starting to dabble. So started doing that show in 23, and it was just like for me it was just like a passion project. At the end of the day, at the start of it, it was like I love the White Sox and I keep up with the team, so let me dive into the prospects, let me get more knowledgeable and see what I can do. And it became really fun. I loved it initially. I was the secondary host with Mike Rankin back in the day, and then shifted into to being a primary host of my show, and then I'll do interviews on the platform as well with players, staff, all the above. So really just a way to just continue to do something I love and enjoy it and cover the White Sox to the best of my ability. And I do the best I can. And it's not, nobody's perfect, but we try really hard to make sure that we're all given just good information. People that diehard White Sox fans, they want to know about everything. And that's really just the goal, is to make sure that we're giving people all the information they can. So it's been great. It's been 4 years of doing that. It's pretty crazy, but it's always a good time.
White Sox fans are the diehard fans. I remember I was at the game last week and they're talking about, oh, well, when Teal comes back, what are they going to do with Caro and things like that? And we kind of see that, and what are they going to do with Drew Romo and everything? So they're very, very locked in as far as White Sox fans go. What do you appreciate most about the fan base? Just you being a fan, now you covering the team. What do you appreciate most about the fan base?
Yeah, I think that I think the White Sox fan base are loyal. It's not the biggest fan base, it's not the craziest one, it's not the loudest one, but they're incredibly loyal, and they want to be around. They want to make sure to be in the know and be in the groove of everything they can. So I think it just is good people. Ultimately, I know that's so simple, but like I really do think it's just really good people. The White Sox org is just it's people that want to be around. They want to be in the atmosphere. They want to dive into everything, and they have a good time while they're doing it. And it's just I just love being. I love seeing White Sox fans be excited too. This season's been fun. It's been a rough handful of years for the White Sox, but I think seeing people just rally behind a team and behind a culture that is positive is always a great thing.
What do you think going forward? Did you ever guess that maybe AL Central banner would go up at the end of this year?
Yeah, not something I was expecting this year. I think it's a little bit ahead of schedule, generally speaking, for for what the White Sox have done. But I think there's a real world that it'll work out well. And I think they're ahead of schedule, which is a great thing. And I think I didn't expect it to be this year, but I think there's a winning culture in place, and there's some really talented young players, and they're playing for each other, and they're playing to win baseball games, and it's cool to see. And it's gonna be a crazy few months here. It's the AL Central is gonna there's 4 teams still in the mix right now within 5 games. So the White Sox have been in first for a while, but they gotta keep it going to stay up there.
Will Venable, the heavy favorite to be AL Manager of the Year. What do you like about him? What do you see that maybe he's resonated with this team, and what's made him connect with these young guys when they come up?
Yeah, he's really passionate. He really enjoys being around, and he really like creates a culture that is just positive. I think there's a very much a like, we are going to work really hard, and we're also going to enjoy being on this team and enjoy playing baseball at the end of the day. And I think that is something that he's ingrained in the system and in the organization. It's a level of dedication and a level of understanding that I don't think has always been there with this team. So I think the players just really respect him, and they want to play for him, and that comes from top down. I think honestly that's the whole organization right now. And this new regime is just like people that the players want to play for, and that's cool to see right now.
Has this already been a successful year for you, or do they need to maybe win the division or win a playoff series for it to be successful for you?
It's already a pretty successful year in my eyes, honestly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's looking at it not the right way necessarily, but I do think it's a very successful season for the White Sox. I think that the idea of I think there's just a unique atmosphere going on right now, and like considering the expectations coming into the year, like they've already exceeded them, and obviously, like you want to say like, oh, make the playoffs, then it can be called successful, but like they've already just exceeded what anybody expected from them in the public space, and I do think that they've already, this is already a success in itself, even if the second half goes poorly or something. Like it's been a huge step forward for the entire organization.
100%, totally agree. What do you have coming up here as the season is coming to a close? Two months out.
We got a million things going on. Always a lot swirling. I got draft interviews coming up, so I got a bunch of White Sox picks who we're going to be doing interviews with over the next few weeks. So trying to get the fan base to know some of these young players, these new guys in the organization. That's going to be super cool. And then beyond that, there's always stuff swirling with just baseball. We're doing a lot of baseball card stuff. We've got our own card breaking branch now, so that's been a huge venture for us. Working on a lot of prospect content. We got our top 100 coming out in a week or two. So there's a lot going on. There's always stuff swirling. We got some events coming up in September. So yeah, a little bit of everything, but it's a good time of year, and just rolling with it as it comes.
Where can people follow you? Where can people see everything for Just Baseball, all the podcasts you're doing? Get people watching more of your stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm on Twitter at Elijah EV8 or X, I guess I should say. But yeah, I got a lot of White Sox stuff on there, a lot of prospect stuff on there. But more importantly, all the podcasts, Future Sox podcast for White Sox stuff, the Call Up podcast for all MLB prospects, Just Baseball, all of our socials, Just Baseball media on every social media. The Just Baseball show is our main flagship podcast. So a little bit of everything. We got a lot of justbaseball.com for the website. So yeah, there's baseball content everywhere. What we're doing, we're putting out as much content as we possibly can. And whether you're a White Sox fan, a prospect person, or just a general baseball person, there's something for you.
A lot of baseball fans out there, even though there's all these changes with the game and all those things. Before you go, just as a baseball fan, what do you appreciate most about the game, or do you not like where the game is going with all these changes?
No, I love the movement of baseball right now. I do. I think that the sport's going in a really good direction. Obviously, the lockout stuff this offseason is going to be complicated, but at the same time, I think there's been a lot of positive growth the past few years. There's more international infusion than ever. There's more youth involvement than ever. I think the sport is just trending well, and people across the world are getting more into baseball as time goes on. So I'll always be a baseball person. I'm not someone that gets bothered by a little change here, a pitch clock here, whatever. Like none of that stuff really bothers me at the end of the day. I think the sport is growing in a positive direction, and there's just so much talent, and it's such a fun game to be a part of and be in the world of.
Change is good, growth is good, adapting is good. We love baseball. On the show, we love the White Sox. Make sure you watch all of Elijah's show, and if you enjoyed this conversation as well, make sure you subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes here on Cousins Conversations. A lot of great guests like Elijah every week, just talking about their jobs and their journeys to where they are in this point. So Elijah, I appreciate you hanging out with me here on Cousins Conversations, man.
Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate it.